Welcome to the second episode of Talk on Tap. Of course, the very first episode, Joya and I discussed the role of On Tap magazine and also the stories that were written therein. We've now gone to episode 2, where I sit down with the creative director of Bature Brewing, Luke McCarthy. Well, we spoke with him being all the way in Scotland, and we speak about a brewery that's based in Lagos, Nigeria. So I hope that you enjoy this episode and learn a little bit more about advertising, marketing, as well as the culture that's required to build a brewery in a rather unfamiliar place. So enjoy. Today we're sitting with Luke McCarthy. Hey, Luke.
Hello.
Who wrote an article about the first craft brewery in Nigeria for the recent summer issue entitled 200 Million People and One Craft Brewery, a Cultural Revolution. Luke McCarthy is the creative director at Bature Brewing, pioneers of craft beer in West Africa, known for their passion for creating unique brews with local ingredients. Thank you for joining us, Luke.
No problem. Thanks very much for having me.
I am so excited to sit down and have a chat with you today. It's like, I never thought that in my wildest dreams that I'll be able to sit with you. We're discussing beer on various continents all over the world. And I appreciate, and thank you so much for being here with us. I just wanted to start off, Luke. Bature Brewery. It's the first craft brewery in Nigeria, correct?
Yes.
Can you just tell us a bit more about the beer landscape prior to Bature moving into the area, and why Kevin and yourself, Kevin Conroy, the founder of the brewery, where did it really take off? Where did it really go to? How did it all start?
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, so it's quite an interesting story. The kind of beer landscape, especially in Nigeria, not just kind of Lagos alone, has been highly dominated by some of the kind of bigger brands. By that, you could probably be referencing Budweiser, Heineken, Guinness, and then obviously some of the kind of the sub brands that they may have in the kind of lager industry, being Star and Trophy as well. And as things are now, there's a few other kind of bigger brands coming in through these brands, but there was never really a kind of craft market as such. And there's so many interesting flavors and dynamics in the Nigerian palate and the Nigerian market that could really be explored in a kind of craft brew area. So Kevin and myself have been good friends for many years. Kevin, the founder of Bature Brewery, is also from Scotland, and he did a lot of travelling with his work. And when he was in Abuja, the kind of idea, I suppose, for the brewery came about with a real lack of access to, in his opinion and in my opinion as well, good quality beer. Now, Kevin has brewed beers before, and Bature Brewery started as a very small kind of hole-in-the-wall tap room in Abuja, in Nigeria, and it began to grow and grow. Lots of kind of different beer styles being experimented with, lots of different beers being created from the tap room. And then over the years, running kind of the background that I have in creative design and advertising and marketing, and obviously branding material as well. Friend of a friend, Kevin, obviously was interested in a little bit of creative support. So that's how the relationship began in terms of me getting on board with Bature Brewery. So from a very early point, there was branding support, packaging support, and just kind of real kind of creative strategy into kind of what the brand could be and projecting where we could end up. And as I say, the tap room in Abuja became very popular and started to grow and grow. And there came a point where we kind of had to start taking it much more seriously, because we knew where this could grow to, because obviously not only were we the first craft brewery in Nigeria, but there was a real opportunity to start introducing these flavors as well. And obviously referencing the 200 million people in one craft brewery really is the case in Nigeria.
It's unreal, actually, that you have 200 million people in one craft brewery.
Exactly. Yeah. So we started looking into investment, and at this point, I came on board as the creative director of the brewery as well. As the director team started to be a bit more established in terms of brewing and technical side, down to sales, and obviously the kind of creative approach that we wanted to achieve with the brewery as well. And we then started thinking about obviously location being a big thing, and was Abuja definitely the right place to kind of grow the brewery? We had our eyes on Lagos as well, and what we did was we did several kind of investment rounds with the brewery, which then allowed us to go and set up the tap room in Lagos in the heart of Victoria Island. And it meant that we kind of felt we were now in the right location to grow the business and the brand in the right way and the best way possible. Not just for obviously Nigeria, but looking at Lagos as a city itself, the population is probably 22 million just in the Lagos city alone. So so there was a real kind of thriving opportunity there, not just with the volume of people, but also the culture, the kind of art scene, the music scene, the industry, everything that we really wanted the brewery from a craft side to get involved with as well. And from there we started to grow and grow. We've had a new brewery installation as well, where we've more than doubled the size of our capacity as a brewery as well now as well. So we're still operating obviously in the micro space, but we're growing pretty rapidly, and we do have some kind of vision to kind of go a little bit further on that as well.
Okay, no, that's fantastic. You actually answered a few of my questions in that one, so you summed it up pretty well there. But of course, the article itself was focused at marketing and promotions of a brewery, especially focused specifically on the one in Nigeria. But you mentioned in the article the importance of authenticity when it comes to marketing. Can you explain a bit more about what you mean in the sense of authenticity when we talk about marketing, especially focused in a place like Lagos, Nigeria?
Yeah, definitely. So I mean, we've seen it firsthand with a lot of brands and businesses that kind of come into new markets or new or emerging markets that maybe they've not communicated in before, and often there's a bit of a kind of copy and paste approach where they'll maybe try and do something they've done somewhere else and bring it into that market and just kind of hope it lands. Whereas you can really see the ones where different brands have paid attention to the location and the language and the tone of voice and what it is they're wanting to deliver as well. In terms of like our brand, we knew where we wanted to go with it. We wanted to kind of touch on the kind of cultural side. We wanted to touch on the kind of the thriving and emerging art scene in Lagos as well. Well, I suppose not just thriving and emerging, but the already established art scene in Lagos. And we kind of felt that if we could start to work locally with like lots of kind of different groups, then the authenticity of what the brand is and what we want to be and what we stand for would start to come across. Equally, it's almost like just doing what we can do with like if it's like different artists or musicians and things like that as well. We know that we start to kind of come across like especially in the kind of style and approach that we want to kind of achieve. And I suppose authenticity, not just on the marketing side, but also in terms of the flavours and the beers that we're brewing as well. We source locally our ingredients in terms of, for our coffee stout, it's an award-winning beer, Black Gold Stout. And we get coffee from Caldi, which is a coffee supplier in Taraba State. For obviously the kind of New England pale ale we have, there's lots of kind of tropical fruits and stuff in there as well, kind of grapefruit and things like that as well. And then equally our lagers are a little bit different as well. So we've had that, and then we have like mango seasonal beers, coconut beers. Everything that we try to bring in is just to keep this not just authenticity in the marketing side, but like how we work and what we're working with. And again, these are flavors that really are they're not new to the Nigerian palate, but they're new to the Nigerian palate in a beer and craft beer sense as well.
Okay, because we also talk about, you quoted in the article itself, it says one of the lessons we've taken to heart is that storytelling is the core of the craft brewery success. And reading the article also, I found that it's almost like you found the people and the beer followed. Am I correct in what I'm analyzing?
Do you know? It's. I think, as I say, when we started out in Abuja, that was all about like having fun and making beer, which, to be honest, is still a big part of what we do. But we're a lot more serious now. But we still have a lot of fun and we still make really good beer. We don't really see it as like a David versus Goliath story, you know, because we're, you know, by proxy, I suppose we are competition for some of the bigger brands. But at the same time, we're kind of operating in a different market. You know, there's different flavour profiles. It's not like people are, you know, there's a comparison, as I say, just by the market we're in, but we're trying to do things a little bit differently as well. And storytelling really comes into the heart of that as well. People are interested to know like where we're from, where we started, where we're going to, what's the story behind the beers that we're making, why are we working with different artists, like what brings the relevance of bringing an artist in, and it kind of brings us to their group and them to us, and everyone kind of elevates each other in that sense. And as I say, in terms of storytelling, we're not just kind of doing that on the brand itself. We're looking at how do we talk about the build for the brewery, how do we talk about individual beers, like so the storytelling in terms of like working with different campaigns for if it's our Hamatan Haze or Lagos Lager or Founders Beer, like what's the story behind these as well, and why do they exist? So and then experimenting with different ways of kind of doing that storytelling as well, which really kind of brings in different markets. We're quite focused on a bit of a, I suppose, consumer insight piece as well, which I think is something that can get missed, probably going back to the authenticity side as well. It's who's drinking our beers and who do we want to drink our beers, what's the age groups for drinking our beers, when are they drinking our beers, where are they drinking them outside of the tap room, and what flavour profiles are hitting the different age ranges and kind of different groups as well. And again, that's something from a storytelling point of view that we can start to hone in on, because we know how we want to communicate with different groups as well. So it's very easy for definitely beer brands just to make beer and put it out, and that's the kind of main thing, and get repeat business. But we're very focused on, like, you know, as I say, this kind of storytelling approach is something that we do with a lot of our partners and brand partners as well, and we know how well it can work if it's done authentically in the right markets.
Okay, now I think like in the article also you mentioned that you targeted using social media for the younger crowd, you use music for a different crowd, you use art for another one, and I just found it's a place that I think it's definitely on my bucket list of a place I would love to come and visit one day. Because not only that, I think the range of beers looks very exciting as well. You also talk about the importance of how a brand story can't just exist on a label or even online, but it needs to come to life in a real space. Can you elaborate a little bit more about what you mentioned in the article about that?
Yeah, so I think kind of one of the touch points in that as well was like the brewery itself really is the kind of the nucleus for our brand. This is the kind of heart of, you know, this is where the beer is produced, and this is the heart of the kind of where everyone comes to experience it. But we are in a lot of venues now across Lagos on tap, and in shops and cans and things like that as well. In terms of like, I suppose not just like how we communicate externally, but like what does our space do? Like it has to be the kind of the home of the brewery as well, like where people come and they go, oh, I went to Bature Brewery and it was fantastic, and then I see them somewhere else and I'm getting the same experience there as well. We've been experimenting a lot with campaigns as well, as a brewery, but also as like individual products themselves. So we're experimenting with how do we storytell about Black Gold Stout on its own, or how do we speak about our Zobo beer, which is called Shakara. For that one, obviously that was a tribute to Afrobeats and Fela Kuti himself. And with that one, what we wanted to do was, you know, how do we communicate that authentically? And what we did was we worked with an artist called Lemmy Garioku, who is known as the king of covers, because he designed all of Fela Kuti's album covers back in the day. We knew that if we could partner with him and collaborate with him, it brings him into a market to understand that this is what this beer stands for, and we've worked with an artist who like lives and breathes and was, you know, the heart and soul of where the kind of art side of that came from as well. And then again, not just using the space to kind of talk about the brand, we then put on different events all year round that kind of help us push, if it's talking about, you know, Celebration, which is a big event, obviously, kind of October time in Lagos, and worldwide, I suppose, as well, kind of celebrating Fela Kuti and Afrobeats. right through to something that we've got coming up at the brewery in a couple of weeks' time. We're having a huge St. Patrick's event, which is going to be insane. There's a huge Irish community, in Lagos. We'll probably be throwing out a few green beers as well. So maybe some leprechaun beers or something. We'll figure out how we're going to handle that. But yeah, we've got some exciting stuff. So we kind of not just like what we do, but like how we kind of bring different groups into the brewery as well is quite a big part of that.
You know, when you talk about the collaborations, I think you make use of collaborations very well. It's very well thought of as well, where you make use of art, culture, music. How do I explain this? It's a question that it's a level of importance. What I want to know is how important has these music, the culture, the art, how it has made Bature what it is today?
I think it's helped. Yeah, I think it's definitely helped bring different audiences to us. I think that's one big part of it. We want to do it because we want to kind of back up exactly what we're saying as a brand. You know, we want to work with local artists, local musicians. You know, there's different areas we're getting into just now as well, where we're speaking to not just like, you know, your standard artists, but we're speaking to people who make different clothing ranges, if it's like different shoes and different, you know, other pieces that we can maybe get behind as some kind of collaboration as well, looking a little bit further afield to the kind of the norm. And it's definitely put us in a good place, because we get so much kind of feedback that people like really enjoy these different kind of quirky products and campaigns and collaborations that we can do. And just last year we did our first international collaboration as well with the team at Brixton Brewery in London. We've had a good relationship with the team at Brixton before, like just kind of kept in touch if it's been different, you know, advice between us, or just kind of keeping a good kind of relationship and friendship there as well. And while we were doing our renovations at the brewery, we really wanted to try and release another beer, and obviously as an international collaboration, this was like a huge opportunity for us, because a lot of people obviously in Lagos and in Africa itself know of us, helpful through different, you know, awards, World Beer Awards and African Beer Cup and things like that as well, which has really kind of put us on the map with other breweries and other consumers, but maybe not kind of globally. We've had some attention from kind of different breweries in the US and things like that as well. London was a real opportunity for us to kind of show that there is a brewery in Lagos doing this type of thing. And obviously a large Nigerian community in London as well is kind of helped kind of communicate, oh, we know these guys if we're back in Lagos, or vice versa. You know, you need to try and get your beers over to London and things like that. So we created a mango beer with the team. And it was fantastic. So we have our own mango beer in Lagos called Mango Disco Juice, and the team at Brixton have one called Mangoes to Brixton. So we did a beer called Mangoes to Lagos with them, and yeah, we absolutely knocked it out of the park. It was a fantastic collaboration. We had a huge event, the Brixton guys. Almost sold out of all the beer they had that one night, so it was still available afterwards. But I think when the Nigerian communities in London heard that this was happening, like it was incredible to see how many people came down for the event as well. But again, I suppose in terms of like these collaborations and storytelling, it's finding the right locations, finding the right people to work with, and making sure that everyone's you know, feeling like they're getting elevated and introduced to these different audiences at the same time.
No, fantastic. You know, the way you talk about your beers, it's the passion that you have for it. I can taste the mango beer. I can taste it. Are you coming to the African Beer Cup, by the way?
I'm hoping to. Yeah. So I was there last year with Kevin, and yeah, it was fantastic. So we're hoping to come along this year. But I mean, speaking about the African Beer Cup, we'll maybe have to get you guys to do something in Lagos sometime as well. Maybe get you the African Beer Cup to Lagos, or a version of it. We have the venue.
Okay, Luke. But now I'm going to get to something that is very close to my heart, and something that I've always been very passionate about in the craft beer field here in South Africa, is budgeting and the marketing budgets that breweries should be doing. Yes, we can focus on the priority being making good beer, but I've personally felt that breweries should be making more concessions for a marketing budget,
Mm-hmm.
in the sense of they should. I don't know how they're going to determine their budgets, but especially when it comes to finances, because yeah, of course, craft breweries sometimes the budgets are tight, but why do you think? Do you think it's important that craft breweries, have a marketing budget specifically focused on promotions and growing their brand, and not just using it as a secondary option, but making a priority of marketing as well? Do you think that they should be doing that?
Yeah, I think it's a tricky one because you can run into so many issues. Like one, how does a microbrewery find the budget to compete with other breweries? How does a microbrewery find an understanding of how much budget to associate to marketing and how that's going to get put in as well? And the thing that always kind of comes back to us is when people talk about return on investment, so ROI.
Yeah.
And throwing however much money at a marketing team or a campaign or a different kind of product piece, how do they know that they're going to have that reciprocated? And it's always an ongoing conversation, but we find that the biggest push in a brewery is the sales team not having enough beer to sell, and the production team having too much beer that the sales team haven't sold. And if you can get a nice bit in the middle where there's harmony, and both of them are working well, then that starts to bring in more of the funds to the brewery, which then allow us to kind of divide up like what's for marketing, what's for tap room, what's for this and that, because we market the beer differently outside of the brewery. We market the brewery itself as a style of event, and then the other piece is what is the brand and how do we communicate that as well. And obviously, a lot of the stuff that we've done has been really good to kind of see it getting picked up internationally. So there's kind of different articles, or obviously having a conversation with you today, kind of comes from this kind of marketing push we've done. And it's tricky because, again, breweries really do have to concentrate on the marketing. They really do have to kind of push that out. And unfortunately, you see it a lot with the big boys where they maybe have more muscle to do that.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that you shouldn't not try. There has to be a push for that. But also, I think craft breweries can be much more creative with how they do that. They're smaller, they can pivot quicker, and they can be a bit more reactive to how they push out content. And these are some of the kind of little ways that you can take advantage of these things as well. You see it with some of the kind of bigger breweries where it's a campaign that's maybe been getting worked on for 3 to 6 months, and they can't very quickly pivot on a lot of things, whereas a craft brewery has more license and creativity to do these little things and get noticed. It's all about how you do it and the kind of creative approach that you do it with, while looking at the budget side too, like what's available and what's the most creative thing we can do for that budget. I suppose back to your question on finances and stuff as well, like it is difficult. Like we have like lots of conversations about like how much budget we can put towards different campaigns and different projects and things coming up, and a lot of that with any business in the world depends on how well the actual product itself is performing. So you have to be making your sales, you have to be brewing the beer and getting out the door, and you have to make sure that the money is coming into the business to then allow these budgets to be allocated to different locations. And it's, as I say, it's one big business working together. Thankfully we've not had a situation like this, but if it's a quiet period, then it's difficult to have the marketing budget for stuff. But at the same time, maybe the marketing budget is the reason that they're quiet. Definitely a cause for arguments there sometimes as well.
Yeah, but I always think that sometimes marketing is not even considered at some breweries. It's just a case of make beer, and the end consumer never gets to enjoy the marketing or the fun side of it.
Yeah. I mean, who's to say they're wrong for doing that? There's definitely there's room for that as well, because it depends how you're defining yourself as a brand. But there's definitely that sometimes that can only last so long before you have to turn your eye to the marketing side, and you have to pay attention to it, especially if you want your business to grow and you want people to know more about, as I say, your story, your brand, and where your beers are available. But there's definitely an area of the craft beer industry where it's the heads are down, the product's getting made and it's out the door, and we don't want to think about marketing. But I do believe that that's a real missed opportunity when you get to a certain point as a brand.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much for that, Luke. I agree with you. I agree with you. But what advice might you share with craft breweries in the places like South Africa, where craft is still seen as a niche? And the David facing Goliath, the conversation you actually just had now. How might the industry build consumer interest and awareness on things craft or local? And that's actually a very good question, is how can David and Goliath work together instead of fighting against each other?
We're in quite an interesting spot, I suppose, especially with Lagos being like the first craft brewery there. There's a bit of a, I think I'd maybe mentioned this in the article as well, but there's a bit of a kind of a playbook of previous breweries that have done certain things, and you can learn from mistakes and you can learn from like successes, and you can start to say how does that applied to Lagos, how's that applied to Nigeria, and we've been quite fortunate in the sense that we're the only guys in that field doing something a little bit differently, which really kind of helps us that we're the standout. Whereas South Africa or Cape Town specifically, if you would say Cape Town, there's so many craft breweries. It's a different landscape. We had the pleasure of kind of meeting so many of them when we were in Cape Town and kind of doing a few tours and catching the guys. And like honestly, like some of the people that we've met, like they're doing like incredibly creative work, not just in terms of like the beer they do, but even just looking at the brands. I mean, I could probably give you like maybe 3 examples who are doing things quite differently. There's the Ager project that we visited. They're fantastic beers and a really nice brand and style and what they do. There's the Afro-Caribbean brewery, which again, like they do some of the most insane cans. And then equally, there's the guys at Shackleton as well, who again, different style, different brands. So that's kind of three micro craft breweries, you could say, who are doing 3 very different things and 3 very different styles. And as I say, the marketing and style of what they do is great, but how do they kind of elevate themselves to the next level is probably what's always on their mind. And I don't think the Afro-Caribbean guys have a plan of some of the cans that they bring out. They talk to us about it and they're like, yeah, we just did that, it's crazy and we don't have the market budget and that's fine, but this is what we're doing. But the beer's fantastic, the space is fantastic, and they obviously always bring out some great stuff. The Shackleton guys, I've noticed they've been doing a lot of kind of new social media work as well. So they've been doing like a push in social media in their tap room. It's been really interesting to see, and I think that's quite a good first step, like bringing someone in to run the social media content and be more creative with how you kind of you're seen externally. And then equally with the Ager project, like we've seen them putting on some different events and looking at how they can start to kind of grow more of the market inside of obviously different collaborations with different beers, and their kind of art style as well is really interesting. They obviously bring out these different elements. So there's kind of 3 different styles of design, 3 very different styles of what they're doing just now. So I think that they're definitely taking an approach to kind of growing the marketing, but how they compete with some of the bigger brands, I'm not sure. And again, it maybe comes back to me talking about the kind of Lagos side where, we're competitors by proxy. So do you count that as competing? But at the same time, we're very different because there's an offer of something very different to what the bigger guys do as well. And interestingly, it doesn't really feel like the craft breweries are competing with each other as well, because they're all so different.
Come to find they're not. It's very, everybody does their thing, but nobody really competes. I've always come to find that as well.
Yeah, so it's an interesting space, and I think they're targeting a market of people who will love everything that they all do, and I think that's probably part of the craft beer industry as well. That one of them's not going to claim an audience in South Africa because people who drink craft beer and different styles of beer will want to try as many as they can. So they'll want to go to all these different places. So it's not exactly. So it's not that they're like, I drink these guys and that's all I drink. So now I'm going to help them elevate to be competitive. It's like, no, you're in a market where your consumer wants variety constantly, and they're not going to get sick of you, but they are going to try everyone else. They might not go back to the big guys. And I suppose part of that is maybe trying to pull even a percentage of the bigger audience to you And I think
Yeah.
some of these brands have started kind of working a lot more on that as well. But we are very fortunate that, you know, it's just us in Lagos. So we're in a very good spot in terms of, we don't have a craft brewery competitor. We're literally just wanting a slice of what these big monopoly companies have at the moment, which is 200 million people in the whole of Nigeria.
And one craft brewery.
and one of us, only the one, yes.
Okay, Luke, thank you so much for the insight on the marketing aspect of and advertising and, you know, the promotions of craft beer. But of course, we come back to the nuts and bolts of it all.
Mm-hmm.
Bature, what lies ahead for it? Where do you see it 5-10 years from now? What's the hopes and dreams? What's the ambitions for the brewery itself?
So I think it's not to say conquer Lagos, but we really want to get ourselves exactly in as many venues and to as many people as possible. You know, there's a larger strategy piece on our side in terms of who's drinking our beers and when are they drinking them, because it's an occasion for every beer, but also like what areas are people you know consuming Bature Brewery as well. We've got some planned collaborations internationally as well. So we're speaking to some other breweries about not just us going to them, but then potentially coming to us to do some nice storytelling pieces there as well. The bigger part with what we do is, you know, the range that we have is you know, it's established, especially at the brewery and some venues, but it's whether or not we start to think about okay, do we focus on like 3 key ones as a kind of venue, and then you come to the brewery and you experience other things?
How big is your range at the moment?
So the main beers that we have, so we've got our Black Gold Stout, our Lagos Lager, our Hamatan Haze, our Founders Pale Ale. So that's kind of a 4 core, I suppose. Then we have like a Nepa, kind of grapefruit pale ale as well. We have a seasonal Zobo beer, seasonal mango beer, seasonal coconut beer. We have another beer called First Lady. And I'm definitely missing some others off the top of my head right now, but yeah, we've got a kind of a large range that could stretch to the 8 or 9 beers. But I think maybe in terms of offsite, depending how we start to grow the business, it's more of a consumer insight piece. So who's drinking Lagos Lager, who's drinking Hamatan Haze, and who's drinking Black Gold Stout, and then you start to introduce them to the rest of them. And it's I suppose that's also about like tap placements and how we kind of establish, like, do we have 2 core beers and one of our kind of not non-mainline beers, but something to introduce other people to with a different palate as well. So we're in the process of kind of experimenting with that in different venues, and as I say, different occasions as well, which everything we kind of do with our beers and venues, we're bringing back all the information we can get. You know, not everything's a success story, but you can learn a lot from these things as well. And that's I mean, that's an ongoing thing that will happen even in 10 years time with where we are, you know. But I would say, like, kind of growing the business and looking at kind of new opportunities is quite a big part of where we're going next.
Oh, Luke, this was so insightful. I want to taste every single beer you mentioned, and I want to come and sit in Lagos, Nigeria, and drink all of it.
Do you know, it's fantastic because, like, I love having people at the brewery that have never been, especially in the tap room itself. You know, the energy in the tap room, the kind of different nights and evenings that we put on. The food that we do is, you know, we've got this fantastic Nigerian menu at the moment as well, which is just absolutely blowing everyone away. Like, the spice is right, the taste, the flavors, the accompaniment with our beers. It's honestly, you have to get down there. It's a fantastic place to go.
Oh, okay, it's on my bucket list. I wish you nothing but success. And thank you again, Luke, for spending some time with us and sharing your incredible journey of Bature. I think it's an amazing story. And of course, it's available in the summer edition of On Tap magazine. I think if people watch this, there's lessons to be learned here, not only from the marketing side of things, but doing due diligence on people. I've always found that me doing social media, I found that the people were the catalyst that made me enjoy the beer even more. It made me want to go to other breweries. It made me want to sit down and have more beer because of the people. I always found that the people were the catalyst. The quality of beer, of course, is paramount, but I think the people still matter to me the most. Would you agree with me? in that
Oh,
regard?
definitely,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
definitely, yeah. And you know, we're in terms of like the brewery and the staff and everyone else there, we're also very big on kind of telling their stories as well, or introducing people to who's actually making the beer and how is it made and what's the process. Because I
Yeah.
suppose one thing I didn't touch too much on is people will always ask what is craft beer, and we feel that like there's a real kind of education piece, like not a lecturing piece, but a real education piece into what is craft beer and why is it important and what's different about it, and that's things that even just in kind of small snippets we have like teams in the brewery learning about it. We're looking at setting up almost like a brewery academy for our staff, front of house and brew team, to kind of learn about craft beer. And because not only are your customers like ambassadors for you when they leave, but or they sample or they purchase you, but your staff are like huge ambassadors for the brand off-site as well. And when they get excited about it and they start to learn about it and they can tell you their knowledge of the beers and what they get from them and everything else, it's fantastic to see. So yeah, 100%. The people involved in the brewery are like, yeah, those are the guys that make the magic happen, so to speak.
They do, definitely. But look, thank you so much for spending some time with me and chatting about everything. And I'm really appreciative, and all the success that lies ahead for you in the future, for you and Kevin as well. That I wish you nothing but the best, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
So I hope that all of you enjoyed the second episode of Talk on Tap. And the autumn edition will be out soon, where we'll be speaking to Craig Claassen. We'll be editing that issue. And of course, prepare yourself for episode 3 is going to be, of course, something phenomenal as well. Where myself and Craig, old friends, will be chatting about the next episode. So, Luke, thank you very much and enjoy the rest of your day. Cheers.
Thank you. See you later.
Bye.
I hope you all enjoyed that chat with Luke. It was really fascinating to learn a little bit more about the culture of beer in different countries, as well as the aspects of marketing and creating a culture of beer. Of course, the next episode, we'll be going into the autumn 2025 edition, and I hope that you enjoy the next interviews. We've got something exciting coming up as well. We'll be having some interesting conversations here in the cave, and we look forward to episode 3. So stay tuned. You can find us, of course, on YouTube, on Facebook, Instagram, all social media platforms. On Tap Magazine will be available at this address as well. So make sure that you subscribe, like, and share. Peace.